So my name is David LeBauer. I work at the Energy Biosciences Institute, where I'm a research scientist, and recently I was appointed as a fellow here at NCSA. I've been doing work with Michael Dietz as a postdoc when he was here, and now I work with Steve Long, who will be speaking next, and also with other groups, including Kenton. I want to also say thank you for inviting me, Kenton and David, for organizing this workshop. So some of our key research questions are, what species can we use for biofuels? Where can they be grown? How much they can produce? And what are the ecological consequences of growing different biofuels in different locations? So this is just some of the maps that we produced through our modeling activities of predicted yields. And you can see, energy cane grows well in the south, willow grows in the north. So trying to envision what the future landscape of biofuel crop production is going to be is part of our effort. And I view, as a scientist, biofuels and agriculture in general as a useful kind of model organism to study, because these are relatively simple ecosystems and relatively data rich. So I'm going to be talking primarily about BETYdb, the Biofuel Ecophysiological Traits and Yields database, that has kind of evolved into Pecan's informatics backend. This is a show of overview of Pecan's kind of workflow. You use data to parameterize ecosystem models, and then you assess the uncertainty in the ecosystem models, and that helps you identify what data to collect next. Right now, I'm going to be focusing primarily on the data we use for parameterization and validation, although Pecan also keeps track of larger data sets used to drive the models, as well as the results and the provenance of the workflows. So this is a schema, just kind of half of the database. I knew this would be too large, too big to go through today, and so this is kind of a summary that I've developed to show. We have the trait and yield and ecosystem services data, and then all the auxiliary or metadata that we have to collect in order to interpret and make those data useful. Now, there's a whole other half of the database that's been developed to track the other sets of data and less formally structured data. But what we've been able to accomplish is to collect primarily from the literature and from other data sets almost 30,000 plant trait records, a third of which are biofuel, our target species. And for yields, we've only focused on biofuel species, and so we've got about 40,000 records. And this is, as I said, primarily from the literature and previously published summaries. And so we have a variety of plant traits used to parameterize ecosystem models, as well as yields that are of interest agronomically, as well as for model calibration. So as I mentioned, our primary focus to date has been to collect published data. Let me see if this link will work. So essentially what we use to do this is we separate out the process between researchers and students. So the researcher identifies in a primary publication the important information, and then to make it so that the student who's working on the actual data entry really only has to focus on taking numbers out and putting in the database, limiting the number of transformations. Not forcing the student to interpret statistics or experimental design information as much as possibility. But as you can see, this is a pretty long document that's really a bear to read. Okay, I'm just going through this so you can see. And it's not clear to me at this point whether or not these things are such an extensive workflow, how much of that we can actually automate in the case of published data. So right now we have going into the literature, you have very unstructured data. You have to figure out which numbers we actually want. You have some statistical summary that requires a lot of knowledge of the context and the experimental design. You have to understand what these bars mean, and et cetera. But what we, I think, would be a lower hanging fruit is raw data. Although now we still have no standard data format. There's lots of it. And I say it's more informative and valuable primarily because, as opposed to a statistical summary, which has a lot of assumptions, well, that was very quick. Holy cow. has a lot of assumptions. Well, you get the raw data. So BETYdb, the other thing that's going to position us is to become an archive for EBI, Energy Biosciences Institute data, which is very big. We've been developing tools to import raw data. Basically, we have to specify kind of a series of fields that people can convert their data to, and so we're trying to find the balance between what is easy for them to convert and that they can automatically we can automatically parse, and using the web forms that we have for the metadata so that the site and treatment information doesn't have to be provided in the spreadsheet. We substitute the text fields for the primary keys, make it easier to read. Opportunities for use with BrownDog. I think converting from native formats to BETYdb schema is difficult. There really aren't conventions that exist. I should point out, maybe as Neon comes online, their format would be a very valuable one. Currently, there's a number of other databases and a few standardized formats. Data One is one in particular. It's very loosely typed, unstructured, but they do have a very strong metadata language, ecological metadata language, and it would be useful to be able to import data directly from there. There's a lot of other opportunities that I don't have time to go into now, but uncertainty is very important. We like to take in a lot of data as long as we can estimate the uncertainty with it. And so this is where you can go for more information. Thank you.